It's Debbie Potts, and I am on a mission to improve the aging process so I can get stronger, faster, and leaner. Part of that is the search for the perfect protein. So I have Dr. Minkoff back on the show for part 2. So let's dive into how to improve our body composition and muscle health.
Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hello, my favorite low-carb aging athletes. I just wanted to share with you a special coupon code that I have from one of my favorite supplements, Bio-Optimizers. Bio-Optimizers has some great products that I often recommend to my health coaching clients based on their nutritional therapy analysis and their functional labs and food log symptoms that we look at. And a few of those are from Bio-Optimizers called HCl Breakthrough, Gluten Guardian, Magnesium Breakthrough, Capex, and their Masszymes enzymes, which is the strongest enzyme formula ever. And it has 5 different kinds of protease. Often we don't digest our food properly. So we are what we eat, but we also are what we can properly break down and absorb. So learn more from Bio-Optimizers. Check out their website and use our code LowCarbAthlete next time you go to purchase something. Enjoy! What is the perfect amino? We are continuing our deep dive into amino acids and the perfect protein with Dr. Minkoff. What is the perfect amino? We've been talking about this recently on my solo podcast in our part 1. Perfect amino. It's an essential amino acid in a form and ratio that is both 99% utilized by the body to build new protein and collagen. It's completely absorbed in the bloodstream within an average of 23 minutes by anyone, no matter the state of their digestive system. Big part is how we digest our proteins. How much of the food that you eat, you're hitting those protein goals, but are you breaking down and breaking those proteins into amino acids, and are you absorbing them? Are you using them? So we'll talk about the utilization of the protein that we eat in our meals, and that taking amino acid supplement might be helpful sometime. I'm not selling anything. I just want to educate you and share as I share my struggles and discoveries and my wins and areas of opportunity, whatever you want to say, as I work on embracing the aging process, because I want to avoid getting the flabby arms and fatty legs and all that we hear happens as we age. And I am in this constant battle of balancing or not balancing. I want more build of muscle versus breakdown. This balance of catabolic to anabolic, building up. So it's like our bank account. We want to have more deposits than withdrawals. And I am finding this super fascinating about taking amino acids, or, at least getting digestive enzymes to support breaking our food down and getting that protein broken down. But what's fascinating is that how much of the protein, as I'm really focusing on getting that 30, 50 grams, ideally 50 grams per meal. And if I only eat 2 meals a day, I'm only at maybe 100 grams of protein, and I'm trying to get 150 grams. And so if you look at how much is absorbed, am I really even getting that protein? Is part of my area of opportunity, limiter factor, is that I'm not breaking the protein I am eating into amino acids, and they're not the right ratio to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So it's a good opportunity to stop and listen to what Dr. Minkoff talks about today, and what he is explaining, how that muscle protein synthesis with the leucine threshold, maybe you're not getting the macros in that you think you are getting in. So it is a challenge. It's a juggling act. And I think people that are vegetarian and especially vegan may need to have a supplement in amino acids because it's super hard, even if you are an animal-based eater. Partially, I think we're not getting the complete amino acids to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis. And major issue for people, area of opportunity, is to improve their digestion. How we eat and when we eat, but it's, are you needing to digest enzymes, and do you need to take the HCl betaine with your meal before you eat to get the protein to break down into usable form? So a perfect protein for the human body, we want to look at pure essential amino acids and the exact ratio needed by the human body to make new protein and collagen without waste and excess calories. And if you are into fasting, I'm not so much as I was in the past, but if you are into long fasting, this is a great solution to add this in so you're not breaking down muscle. So if you take Perfect Amino Supplement by Body Health 20 to 30 minutes before a workout, I said this in a previous episode, but I'll say it again, 20 to 30 minutes before your workout, they will be absorbed in your bloodstream by the time you start and help you repair micro tears in the muscle as they occur. This can improve your endurance and recovery time. The amino acids are 99% utilized, can be used to prevent muscle loss during intermittent fasting and gain lean muscle. So if you are trying to get stronger and leaner, perform better, recover faster, as I am, you may want to look at your protein sources and look at foods that don't have the toxins, not excess calories. And if you want to avoid blood sugar spikes, bloating, and fatigue tied to poor digestion of proteins, you may need to supplement with an essential amino acid that has the right ratio. So we'll talk about the ratio of the essential amino acids, why that matters, and how you can use perfect aminos in place of a meal, as I've been doing. So as I said, I'm trying to get 2 meals a day is what I usually do. One meal is a little bigger, like my main lunch dinner during work week is around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, 30 grams of protein in a meal I can get from my 10 perfect amino tablets, or you can do 2 scoops of the powder. Now, if you're trying to prevent the muscle loss with the fasting, as I said, this can be very beneficial. And females, we should not be fasting so much. So I would be limiting your extended fasting if you are fit and active. So more information we'll get into with Dr. Minkoff. I just let him talk and share his knowledge. But really, how do we get protein to work? Why we may be not getting the amino acids from the food we are eating. And is this why I'm not as solid arms as I want to be? I want to lift heavy weights as I do, say 3-4 days a week, doing my 3 to 5 reps to fatigue, 3 to 5 sets. And if that's still not working, you may look at what you're eating, but how you're eating it, and if you're breaking it down. So listen to my other solo podcasts, watch our video, but I think it's really fascinating to look at the different proteins and how they're utilized at different rates as a chart on their website on bodyhealth.com, because the essential amino acids as they sell, Perfect Amino, is 99% used to build protein. Whole eggs, 48%, meat, poultry, and fish, 32%, whey, soy, and nuts are only 18%. And then I know so many clients that come to me and they take branched chain amino acid. You use 1% of those to build protein. So the rest of it, we're catabolic. We want to be anabolic building. So think about if I'm only using 18% of that whey protein, 82% isn't being used to build muscle. crazy. So we think we know we're doing all the right things, but there's always time to assess what you're doing. Is it working for you? If so, great. But if it's not, stop trying to do the same nutrition protocol or exercise protocol, lifestyle habits over and over again. Switch it up. So we don't want to catabolize our muscles. We are already at a battle, especially the females, to fight that muscle loss, especially if you're doing long endurance training. We are more in a catabolic state when we're doing endurance training. We want to build muscle by lifting the heavy weights, but once you start doing more cardio as an endurance athlete, you're probably in a negative funds in your muscle bank account. So taking a supplement and getting your protein after your workouts in your eating window, 12 hours eating, 12 hours not eating, making sure you're getting that right dose to create muscle protein synthesis. All right, so I'll stop talking and you can start listening to Dr. Minkoff. All right, I have Dr. Minkoff on the show to continue talking about the perfect amino, as I think we all have so many questions on how we can improve the aging process as athletes and also just everyone in general. So thank you, Dr. Minkoff, for helping me share a little more info on your perfect aminos in your research.
Okay.
Okay. So
you want me to just start or you want to ask me a question?
Well, what is the perfect amino? What is it all about?
Okay. Our bodies are made out of, our structural tissues are made out of protein. And the way we get protein is we eat other people's proteins, other bodies' proteins, whether they're plant bodies or animal bodies. There's about 22 basic building blocks for proteins. Those are called amino acids. So if people think of the macronutrients, the three normally understood macronutrients, so macro is big. So these are the big categories of foods that we need. There are proteins and carbohydrates and fats. And all of those have a basic structure where carbons and hydrogens and oxygens are put together in different configurations. In one configuration, it's a carbohydrate, in another configuration, it's a fat, in another configuration, it's an amino acid. Amino acids actually have nitrogens. Amino in Greek means nitrogen. And so if you add a nitrogen to a carbon, hydrogen, oxygen molecule, it makes it an amino acid. And there's about 22 or so amino acids, depends how you count. Some people say 20, some people say more. But if you look in a book under amino acids, you'll say there's like 22 amino acids that are the building blocks of proteins. And the easiest way to think of it is the cell itself, each individual cell, whether it's a liver cell or a brain cell or a stomach cell, in their nucleus, in the middle of the cell where the DNA is, the DNA basically is an instruction sheet for which proteins that cell needs to make. And there's a code in there, and that's what the DNA is. And so the DNA says, I need to make some insulin, or I need to make some muscle tissue, or I need to make some liver tissue. And it sends a messenger, mRNA, it's a messenger molecule, to a little factory in the cell called a ribosome that says, here's the construction documents for making this protein. So insulin's a protein. And it says, okay, and if you think of the 22 amino acids as different colored beads, and you say, okay, I need the first one on the chain is a yellow bead, and it's like stringing beads, so it puts one on the chain. And the next one is a leucine, it's a green bean, and you puts one on the chain. And insulin, I think, has 89 or maybe more individual amino acids in a particular sequence, which makes that insulin. And so if that cell wants to make glutathione, which is a detoxification particle, antioxidant, there's 3 amino acids. And it says, okay, I need a cysteine, and I need a glycine, and I need a glutamic acid. And now you have glutathione. And so that's how the cell assembles them. Now, in order to do that, the cell has to have the amino acids, because our bodies can make all the proteins, and they can make 14 of these 22 amino acids, but it can't make 8 of them. And those 8 are called essential amino acids because we can't make them. Other species don't have the same requirements as we do. Like cows, they have 4 stomachs and they have different gut bacteria, and they can make these things, but we can't. So if in our diet we don't get those 8 essential amino acids, or we're missing any of them, we can't make like 99.9% of the proteins that we have. So what we need to do is get lots of essential amino acids, because out of the essential ones, we can then make the other 14, and we can assemble any protein we want. Now, the barrier for us is most people that we test, when we look in their blood for levels of the 22 amino acids, what we find is that most people are deficient in these 8 essential amino acids. Like their levels are way too low. Now, if you can imagine, count up all the cells in our body, there's about 100 trillion cells in the body. Each one of them is responsible for making proteins. If the suppliers don't deliver the amino acids to those cells, they can't make the proteins. So if we wanted to make this simple protein, the glutathione, and the body is low in cysteine, it's got enough glycine and it's got enough glutamic acid, but it doesn't have enough cysteine so that 100 trillion cells have a ready supply, then it says, okay, I'm ready to make the protein. And the cell says, oh, we don't have any glutamic acid today, or we don't have any cysteine today. And guess what? Glutathione doesn't get made. And then we look on the lab sheet and we're doing a blood level for glutathione, which is the major antioxidant in the body, major molecule that the body needs to detoxify stuff. And it shows the glutathione levels way off the scale as too low. And so now that person is going to be susceptible in a bigger way to oxidative stressors and environmental toxins, because they don't have the raw materials to make enough glutathione to keep up with what their body needs are. Now, there's probably about 400,000 different proteins in the body, which all the time have to be made, because you go to the gym and you do a lot of pull-ups and you get micro tears in your muscles, and that muscle needs to heal those. It needs new amino acids to be able to fill in those places where you have these micro trauma or micro tears. And if the body doesn't have the raw materials to make that repair, it doesn't get repaired. And that means you might be sore for a week or 10 days instead of a day or 2 or 3. And so if you're an athlete and you're looking for performance change from workouts that cause enough stress so that the body then gets the stimulus to like get stronger, get faster, deliver oxygen better, and the body can't keep up with that because it doesn't have the raw materials, it doesn't have the raw amino acids, it doesn't happen. And so the first thing is you're sore for a long time, you don't recover, you don't get the build that you want or the strength that you want, and then you get injured. And then when you get injured, and you're deficient, it just takes too long. The other thing that we found is in athletes that have high very high requirements for amino acids. And anybody who's doing any kind of distance aerobic activity, or even like heavy weightlifting, or even lots of basketball, what some people find is after a big race or a big event is a day or two later, they get a cold or hard training cycles. Person gets sick. Well, why do they get sick? All the immune particles are proteins. All the cytokines and the immunoglobulins, these are all proteins. So the body gets a big stressor, which is tons of trauma to the cardiovascular, tendon, ligament, muscle system. It turns on we got to repair all this stuff. It grabs all the amino acids possible. And then the immune system is it sags. And then you get sick. We found with people, if we like during and after one of these events, you just really load amino acids, people don't get sick because they get enough in so that the body can sort of handle everything. And it isn't a problem. A long time ago, I was working with the doctor who was, in fact, he was in here yesterday. He was Lance Armstrong's right-hand man. And so we gave the team, some of the team members, Perfect Amino for one of the Tour de France's. And they knew from past experience that no matter what they did nutritionally, IVs before the race, IV after the race, chef, eat this food, they always broke down. By the end of the tour, their performances were down. Their tendinitises and myositis and all this stuff was up. And there just wasn't anything that they knew that they could keep up with it. And we gave them 10 tablets of Perfect Amino 3 times a day to the 3 top riders. And their aerobic performance was stronger at the end than it was at the beginning. They actually gained from sitting on a bicycle 5 hours a day at maximum effort with, high altitude and all the other stressors that go down. And they were actually better at the end than they were at the beginning. And they couldn't believe what happened because they weren't breaking down. That if you got enough of the right essential amino acids in the body could do amazing things. Mm-hmm. So, this was really a revelation, and this is not well known in amino acid chemistry or in clinical nutrition or for registered dietitians. This is still not really appreciated. So here, the problem that we see now, so probably 100 years ago, you could get all the amino acids you need if you ate the right diet. What we find now is that 99% of people have problems with their intestines and digestion, and that the quality of the food that people eat now is just not what it was. And that some people can do better if they're on high protein diets, but virtually all vegans, vegetarians, people who are on low protein diets, they just don't get enough. Now, tens of millions of people are on drugs to block stomach acid. Nexium, Pepcid, Tagamet, Propulsid. Okay, these are mega billion-dollar drugs, and hundreds of millions of people take these drugs either by prescription from their doctors, or they're now, most of them are available over the counter. They block stomach acid. So instead of having an acid pH in your stomach, you have a neutral pH. The first step in protein digestion is an enzyme in the stomach called pepsin. And pepsin doesn't work without acid. Pepsin's actually in a form that's called pepsinogen. It's not active. The stomach secretes acid. It turns on the pepsinogen, turns it into pepsin, and then it's the first step in protein digestion. Now, we talked before about proteins and amino acids, but if you have a steak or you have a lamb chop, if you take a single muscle fiber and put it under a very, very high-powered microscope, and you counted how many amino acids were in the sequence to create one microscopic muscle fiber, it's about 5,600 amino acids per muscle fiber. Okay, well, that's a lot.
Oh, this,
Okay, now the cell has to stick those on that string one at a time until the 5,600, okay, I'm a new muscle fiber, here you go. And then I'm going to make another muscle fiber, and here you go. Now, if any of those 8 essential amino acids are not present, that stops. And so you don't get muscle development. Our bodies turn over proteins. The gut lining cells turn over about every 4 or 5 days. And if it doesn't turn over, you get ulcers in your mouth or ulcers in your stomach or ulcers in your intestine, or the membranes aren't structured right and you don't get absorption. So there's a million ways that the proteins that you eat aren't digested or aren't assimilated, and they don't get in our bodies. And most of us have yeast and parasites and bad bacteria, and we're eating foods that we are either sensitive or allergic to. Most people gluten, and many people dairy, and some people all kinds of other stuff, which produces an inflammatory reaction in their intestine, and then they don't absorb well. And then this is sort of a catch-22, because the major enzymes that digest protein, so pepsin is one, but there's 2 more that come out of the pancreas, or more than 2, that digest protein, trypsin and chymotrypsin. Those are proteins. So if you don't have enough to make the muscle back, you might not have enough to make the enzymes themselves, which are needed to digest the proteins. And we measure, so in our office, we check stool tests on everybody, and we measure the levels of chymotrypsin in their stool. And it should be above 30, and most people are in the range of 6 to 15. Like they're deficient in essential enzymes needed to digest protein. So they eat protein, but they can't digest it.
yep.
So you get this catch-22, and that's why we see most people just do a fasting level of 22 amino acids in their blood, and we find that most people have significant deficiencies of 1 or more essential amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
So what is perfect amino? Well, it's the 8 essential amino acids. And it turns out that the ratio between the amino acids has to be just right. And if it's just right, then it's the perfect formula that when you put it in the body and these go to the cells, that out of that they can make any protein they want. And with virtually no waste. Like they can use all the amino acids. If you look at regular proteins, like anything dairy, whey, the blend of amino acids isn't just the 8. Dairy has all 8, but they're in a formula which isn't optimum for human. Might be optimum for a calf, but it isn't optimum for a human. And there's a lot of other amino acids in there that the body can't really readily use. And so there have been experiments done to see how good is a protein at getting into the body, and then the body being able to use that protein, so it digests it down into amino acids, and then what percentage of the amino acids can the body then use to make its own protein. And this has been measured in experimental studies. And so I can give you the numbers. If you eat a dairy related protein, and that was the only protein you took for the day, and you measured how much of it actually got into the cell and utilized to make protein versus how much of it got cycled another way, it would be about 16%. So not very efficient. So it says 25 grams per scoop of whey protein on your thing. Okay, multiply it by 16%. That's how much you're actually getting.
Yeah.
Soy is about the same.
Wow.
Meats and fish are better. They're about twice as good. So about 32 or 33% of those amino acids of those proteins get utilized to make body protein. The best food protein is whole chicken egg. So yolk plus white is about 48%. So your best bet with food, if people think that egg whites are healthy, you take it down to about 16%. It turns out that you sort of, wreck it. You turn it into like whey or soy. So eat your yolks, because one of the essential amino acids is methionine. It's a sulfur-based amino acid. It's an essential amino acid. And there's very little of it in the white. It's almost all in the yolk. So you need that. The only food that's better than eggs is breast milk. And breast milk's about 49% utilized. So it's hard to get if you're an athlete. So
if you're over 3 years old, maybe.
if you're over 3 years old. I have a funny story. My daughter-in-law was nursing her new baby, and the 4-year-old was watching the scene, and he was like licking his lips because he wanted in on some. So she said to him, you did this for 3 years. He said, I remember. And she said, well, do you want to taste it? He said, yeah. So she squirts out a little bit of the milk and puts it in a cup for him. And he swigs it down, and he gets a big smile on his face. And she said to him, why are you smiling? Like, what does it taste like to you? And he says back to her, it tastes just like chocolate.
Oh.
Anyway,
thanks.
perfect amino, if you measure it, is 99% utilized to make body protein. So it doesn't have to be digested. It's already broken down into amino acids. And it's the 8 essential amino acids. So once it goes in the body, in 23 minutes, you can measure it in the bloodstream. And then we did some studies to see, does it raise insulin? Because people were in ketosis. Can I take perfect amino if I'm fasting, if I'm trying to be in ketosis, or, all the versions of it? So we did a study where we looked at, does it raise insulin when you take perfect amino? The answer is no, you do not get an insulin response. Does it raise blood sugar? No, it doesn't raise blood sugar. There are claims and scientific papers that say that there's really 9 essential amino acids or 10 essential amino acids, not 8. So in another study, we measured the other, what are called conditional amino acids, are histidine and arginine. And we found that after we gave perfect amino and measured blood levels, baseline levels of all 22 amino acids, and then looked to see after perfect amino, 30, 60, 90 minutes, did we get elevations in histidine and arginine? Like the body could take these and make them, and they did. So you don't need 8 or you don't need 9 or 10. You need 8 if the formula is right. Now, a lot of people have been told that the branched chain amino acids are good for recovery and they build muscle. The branched chain amino acids are 3 of the 8. But unless you have all 8, you can't make proteins. So the body can't use the branched chain amino acids to make proteins. And in plenty of studies, it shows that it doesn't really do that. The body takes those amino acids, turns them into carbohydrates, and they're used for fuel. So if you want fuel, have a banana or a goo or something like that. You don't need branched chain amino acids.
So you're saying the branched chain amino acids turned to fuel? They're not used for proteins, and they're not used.
Yeah, because the body, unless all 8 are there, it just the body takes the nitrogen off, and now you have a carbohydrate.
I must have used that for fuel when I started with Ironmans in 2001. I used to do my Hammer Nutrition branched chain amino acids and the Race Cap Supreme every hour. That's what I use for fuel.
You got to use for fuel. Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Now, one of the ways you could think about this is, let's say that you are a factory that manufactures a protein, and let's call that protein a car, like a simple car. So the cell has to make cars. Now, the cell has a very restricted area for its raw materials. And let's say that a car required 8 different things to run. Like it required a body and wheels and a motor and a steering wheel and so that the total was 8 things it had, and it could make a car. Now, if you supplied not just the 8 to make a car, but you supplied also another whole bunch of the ones that weren't required to make the car at the same time to the cell. And the cell has no storage place. Like there's no storage depot for proteins in the body. So there's storage places for carbohydrates. We have glycogen, which gets stored in muscles and liver, and that sugars can get stored as fat. So we have storage depots for fat and carbohydrates. There is no storage depot for proteins. It's the body structure itself. If you see people who have been through starvation or calorie malnutrition, or they're on calorie restricted diets, their body's looking for calories. It just dismembers itself. Proteins just waste away. And so there's no there's no depot like, oh, here's my storage area for proteins. No, it's your muscles and it's your organ tissue. The body just can take it apart in seconds to utilize it and then turn those amino acids into fuel. So if you load up this cell with lots of extra stuff that it can't use and it has no place to store it, it just turns it into fuel. It turns it into fat. So if I delivered to you the 8 essential things that you needed and another 50 things that you didn't need, but I missed one of the amino acids, I only gave you 7 instead of 8, and said, how many cars could you make? We couldn't make any because you're missing a critical part. So proteins that are missing any of the 8 essential amino acids, and the most notable one is collagen. So collagen is very popular as a supplement. It's billions of dollars is sold in collagen. But if you do an analysis on collagen, there's no tryptophan in collagen. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid. I'm not saying that taking collagen is a bad thing to do or it's toxic to you, but the efficiency of being able to use that collagen and make proteins in the body theoretically would be 0 because there's no tryptophan. And so some people have gotten on this and appreciated it. Dave Asprey's one of them because I've had this talk with him, where some of these companies now are adding tryptophan to their collagen so that the body can actually utilize the collagen to make proteins. And so this is a very important thing. That's why the efficiency of milk proteins or meat proteins or dairy or egg proteins is less than 99% because they're low in some of the amino acids that are needed to make the proteins that we have to have. And why Perfect Amino, we say it's 99% utilized because it's exactly what the cells need to make protein. And so people feel it. They feel it in their hair thickness, in their nails, in their recovery rate, in their muscles, because boy, the body gets this stuff and it just goes turbo on it because it can utilize this to make protein.
So with the whey protein, so one of the quotes on the website was proteins are not all equal that we were just discussing. Protein powders as whey are over 80% converted to sugar in the body. And that's interesting because we always talk about if you can't hit your protein goals for the day, have a whey shake because that's the highest in leucine in the amino acid profile to help stimulate muscle protein synthesis rather than trying to eat a piece of meat when you're not hungry. It's just quick and easy plus post-workout. So are you saying having a whey protein shake is not effective for muscle protein synthesis if it's not converted?
No, if you get enough, you can make protein out of whey protein. It's just if you think you're getting 25 grams of protein from a scoop, you're getting about 16% that's actually utilizable. 84% is going to get turned into a carbohydrate. So it doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean that it's just the efficiency is way low. So what we found is the formulas where you do a gram of protein per pound of body weight as a place to start, way overestimates what the real need for essential amino acids is. And it's a way overcompensation, because if you just ate perfect amino, probably 10 tablets 3 times a day for most people would fulfill their complete protein need for the day.
Because
If
the
they're very active.
because the other food that you're getting is not 100% converted to protein, muscle.
To proteins, yeah. And
Makes
so
sense.
there have been people who did this. I know one guy who did a 3-year experiment or 2-year experiment where he only ate non-protein. He's Italian, so he ate fruits and vegetables and pasta 3 meals a day.
Not bread,
virtually
too.
No protein, no cheese. Okay. And he did a weight, and he did 10 tablets 3 times a day of perfect amino. He did it for 2 years. He gained about 30 pounds of muscle. And I was sitting with him one night after the experiment, and I said, this is pretty amazing what you did. He lifts up his arm like this, and he had a suit on. But he lifted up his arm, and he said, "Take a feel." And I reached over with one hand, and he said, "Oh no, you need 2 hands."
Sounds like my
And
husband.
he was one of these people. I'm not one of these people, but he was one of these people where when they do strength training, their muscles turn into rocks, like gigantic rocks. So, I mean, genetically, he's, he might be a sprinter and a lifter, but he'd never be a triathlete because they're the wrong kind of muscles. But it was just impressive that he hadn't had any real protein in a long time. So it's an efficiency thing. So I'm like, okay, if I want a gram of protein per pound of body weight and I weigh 170 pounds, I got to have 170 grams of protein a day. I can't eat that much in terms of dietary protein.
Yeah.
I the last week I started going back to just like track what I'm actually doing. And, I had 3 decent big protein meals, 30 grams of eggs in the morning. So that's 4 eggs. That's about my maximum. Okay. So it's about 30 grams of protein. And then I had, 42, I had a cup of tuna fish, which I think was another 48 grams of protein. And then I had 8 ounces of steak for dinner, which is about little over 50 grams of protein. So I'm short, 50 plus 40 plus 30, I'm short. And I'd had it, If I take 2 scoops of perfect amino, that's 30 grams equivalent of the protein. So I just from 110 or 120 to 140. And then I usually take 2 scoops twice a day and I'm at my 170. And the nice thing about it is that it's easy. I just put it in a glass of water and stir it up, or you can add it to a smoothie and drink it down. And it's got virtually no calories. If you're going to eat another 60 grams of protein a day, you're going to have another 400, 500, 600, depending on how fatty the thing is, the calories, and you're going to turn into a blimp.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, some people have used perfect amino as a weight loss strategy of just make your protein calories perfect amino and then divide up the rest of it in terms of whatever fats or carbohydrates you eat. And then you can be calorie restricted, but you're not going to lose all your lean muscle mass. All these new drugs, the semaglutides, the HCG diets, all these super calorie restricted diets, these people lose muscle. It just melts off of them. I saw a guy today. He went vegan. Okay. For 3 months, and he lifted weights the whole time. And he's a muscular guy. Like he's a ranked, he's in his late 60s, but in Tampa Bay, he is one of the best tennis players for his age. So, he's got a trainer and he's super serious about this. And, he lost 6 pounds of lean body mass with his vegan diet. And he actually did a DEXA scan, like he did a formal thing. And he was so distraught by it. And so he was in today for a visit and I said, if you're going to build it back, you need to take lots of perfect amino. And somebody told him to do an experiment on this for some other reason. But so we found in the people that we tracked who were on semaglutide or one of these Wegovy or one of these drugs, that you got to take a lot of perfect amino and then you won't lose lean body mass. But if you don't, and you have small portions because it kills appetite, you're going to lose all the tissue that you don't want to have, that you don't want to lose. Because getting lean body mass back is hard.
Mm-hmm. So with people that are vegetarian, vegan, that'd be a great option, right? So taking them, because they don't get enough of the right amino acids. They don't,
because the quality of the proteins, these plant proteins have what we call it is amino acid utilization level. So, or nitrogen utilization level, NNU, net nitrogen utilization level. So the net nitrogen utilization means how much of the amino acid did you actually utilize to make body protein. So again, dairy 16 and soy 17 and meats are 33 and eggs are 48. The net nitrogen utilization of these plant proteins is terrible. It's under 10%.
Mm-hmm.
We did not an experiment, but an investigation where we looked at 24 species of spirulina. Now, if you go to the health food store and you look at the advertisements, it's like spirulina. This is the food of whales. You take a whale and they eat mostly spirulina, and you get an animal that's thousands of pounds big. But humans aren't whales. And so we looked at what the amino acid profiles were for 24 species of spirulina. 18 of them were missing at least one essential amino acid. So the net nitrogen or the net amino acid utilization was 0. In 6 of them, they did have all essential amino acids, but in very abnormal ratios. And the net nitrogen utilization was only 6. So for humans, that doesn't mean spirulina is a bad food. There's chlorophyll and minerals and good stuff. But if you're thinking that it's a way to get your body nourished with protein, it really doesn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
For most people. I'm going to say for most people. Some people have intestines that are like cows and they can manufacture amino acids. And there's some people that are vegetarian athletes or bodybuilders who develop beautiful physiques and strength,
mm-hmm.
but they're in my experience, it doesn't work for most people.
And that's why I continue to say all the time that we need to test and not guess, and then also personalize our programs, because all these head podcaster influencers, doctors will say to, eat this way, take these supplements, do this, do that, but it's not exactly what works for them if they're, promoting plant-based diet or strict carnivore or whatever. I think we need to remember to start with that as a template and adjust that. We need to not just copy what someone else does.
Right.
And the other thought was you were talking about people fasting, and I was doing a blog and video on this week, especially athletes fasting so much. And if it's a benefit, why people fast so much for cell autophagy and the benefits of exercise that help cell autophagy. And so coming down to it, endurance athletes, we are doing exercise that is creating that AMPK pathway, is the breakdown catabolic. But as we're aging athletes, do we really want to be breaking our body down, doing this excessive fasting and doing excessive cardio, endurance training? Instead, we should be focusing on more building anabolic and being more mTOR, and, back and forth, everything's a Goldilocks effect. But I think we've gone, again, the trend the last 5+ years was keto and fasting. And I think athletes doing so much low calorie, doing long distance and endurance events, I think we're in this catabolic breakdown state on top of a busy, stressful life, which is breaking down. So I'm just curious about just for athletes and aging athletes that doing perfect aminos on top of having a nutrient dense whole food diet, getting your protein in, is really essential. Just pointing out to people that we don't want to be in a catabolic state all the time by fasting and doing the endurance training, that as we're aging, the importance of building muscle and preserving muscle and really focusing on our health of our muscle, I think is what I'm learning more about. So would you agree that, we need to watch intermittent fasting and being too ketogenic, too low carb, and not getting enough protein and healthy fats in for athletes, endurance athletes specifically, and then aging athletes, as we're all 50 and older people listening more so, and then the female, how we have to work even harder to not lose muscle as we age?
Absolutely. I'm with you. And look, you're going to lose muscle no matter what you do when you age. Virtually everybody does. The average person loses 25 to 30% of their lean body mass between age 20 and age 60, unless they're really paying attention to it. So that is the trend. I remember I did a lot of gymnastics when I was in college, and I just had tremendous upper body strength and, dozens of push-ups or pull-ups at one time and rope climbs and things like that. Oh man, it goes away. No matter what you do, it goes away. And so I think at whatever age you're at, you need to really pay attention to getting enough protein and getting enough calories so that your body's not breaking down. I think the DEXA it can be very helpful every 3 to 6 months, pay the $150 and go get a DEXA scan. And then you can experiment and say, I tried this experiment to see what would happen with my body, with my basic body compartments, what % body fat, what % protein, what % lean body mass, what % bone. And is what I'm doing taking me in the direction of more lean body mass, appropriate levels of visceral and peripheral fat, and enough body water so that I am getting the gains that I'm hoping for, and it can be objectively measured, along with how's your performance doing? Are you stronger? Can you push more watts? How's your recovery? That you can then figure out for your physiology what the best thing is. This doctor I was telling you about, he was in here yesterday because I help him with his own body. And he said that these tour riders now are doing drinks that have like massive amounts of carbohydrates in them for recovery and all day long. And I said, well, they have very unique bodies and they can utilize all this stuff. I know that if I did that, I would turn into a blimp and I'd have diabetes. So your age and your physiology is the only thing that matters. And that I recommend people get a transcutaneous glucose monitor. They wear it until they figure out how can they keep themselves metabolically healthy. And then if you do various ways to do the scans, how is your body holding up so that you're not frail when you're 70 years old and, you fall down and break your hip and, half those people will be dead in a year. So, these are the real key important things. You have to keep your muscles, and that fasting can be helpful, but it can also be detrimental. And if you do it too much, too long, I recently heard, Peter Attia kept records on himself, and when he was doing a lot of fasting, his body just fell apart. Yeah. His lean body tissue just wasted. That's the last thing you want. So these things are faddish, and there may be some benefit from it, but I think my goal for people is similar to his. You want at 100 years old, you want to be able to walk up and down a flight of stairs, get down on the floor and play with your grandchildren, be able to take a suitcase and put it in the overhead compartment, have decent enough balance that a little bit doesn't make you tip over and fall. Yep. And that in order to do that, you have to have muscles and a functioning nervous system. And this layman concept of you need two tissues if you want to live a long time. You need a brain and you need muscles. And the things that nourish the brain or the things that nourish the muscles also nourish the brain. Yeah. And if you don't have mTOR activated enough times, you're not going to have either one. Yeah. And if you're fasting all the time and you have no mTOR, you're gonna be you're going to walk around. Some of these guys actually brag about this. Like, I'm cold all the time and I'm starving all the time, but boy, I'm going to live a long time. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I know that's what I'm sharing this information because I think it's so important to people realize, are you doing what's best for you so you can thrive as you age? Are you looking at creating your best version of yourself for today and your future self? And I think so many people just get on whatever trends are out there, the cold plunges, the sauna, the sprints, the fasting, the low carb, 20 grams a day, and then, putting that onto a stressful lifestyle. And they think they're doing benefits for their body and longevity, and they don't realize it might be like it happened to me. I got adrenal fatigue 10 years ago, and I think it was related to I was doing everything too much. I was doing Ironmans. I was running my own business. I was doing fasted workouts. I was doing the bulletproof coffee and, trying to do low carb, and I was doing everything to the extreme. And that's what I see happening a lot here in the fasting world and for athletes. So I'm on a mission.
Yeah. So they need to hook up with you, and so you can monitor them. Everybody works better with a coach. Everybody works better with a goal setter and a keeper of, is this really working or not? And then they can actually be more scientific about this, because one's own perception of what's happening with one is usually not very good.
No, I think I'm working with a naturopath doctor, and I just did her metabolic test, and like, okay, we got to work on you. And, I just think doctors, naturopath doctors, everyone, coaches need coaches too. And I think when you're in the service industry too, you're giving, and you don't realize you're not putting that oxygen mask on first to take care of you so you can help other people and make a difference. So anyways, it's such a big topic, and I appreciate your time coming back on again, because I'm on a mission to help people improve the aging process. And I'm actually at my mom's, and she's 82 and had friends over last night that I've known since third grade, and they're 81. And just looking at the gym today, I go the lunchtime to work out and watch people. And, people get frail as they get older, and then they're lifting weights, but they're doing 15, 20 repetitions. And so I just, just watching how we age and how you say how much we lose, but I'm on a mission to go, okay, can we improve that stat?
Right.
I don't want to, look at you, you're still doing Ironmans, you're strong, you're fit, and you're in your 70s, and you're planning on winning your age group when you're 80. And I think it's looking at, all right, these are the changes that happen as we age, but aren't they all controllable to some extent? And can't we do something about it now by taking perfect aminos is such a good little secret to add in, along with all the exercise, nutrition, lifestyle habits to improve that process.
Perfectly said.
All right. So where can I'll put all the links for your program, but do you guys do health coaching in your program? You have a 30-day program on your website?
We have some limited stuff. We're actually working on rolling out a real full program for people, but they can go to bodyhealth.com. There's a couple hundred videos on there with information and about the products and about fitness. There's a newsletter that comes out, which gives people tips on nutrition and performance. And then I have a clinic, which is a integrated medicine clinic. The website is LifeWorks Wellness Center, LIFEWORKS, wellnesscenter.com. We also have a newsletter there. All this stuff's free. There's also a lot of videos on there, hundreds of videos on there about similar topics of health and longevity.
Well, that's why I had you back on, because I started going down rabbit hole, reading everything on your website. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to share this. Good.
Great. So for people who are interested in seeing us, most of the people we see have chronic illness, so they have cancer or neurological disease or things like that. We do some executive stuff. So on the website, you can send in an inquiry, and someone will call you and see if we're the right fit for you. And yeah, it's great what you're doing. And we need just more and more people thinking this way and educating people this way. Mm-hmm. Because the flow of education is really the wrong way. It's fast food and artificial meat and disguised chemicals that make food seem like they're pure and they're preserved, but it turns out, that's bad for you. And the more people know, the better we can sort of raise up the society and transform healthcare so that we can actually be telling people things that are going to make them healthier, fitter, and what's happening now is the society is going to be bankrupt from health costs. The biggest cause of bankruptcy in this country is health. It's medical expenses. And that's because the orientation is on sickness and on drugs.
Yep.
And that if you want to have people healthy, they got to eat healthy and they got to exercise healthy and get some sleep. And, they got to stay away from doctors unless there's dire emergency circumstances, in which case that's the appropriate place to go. But if you're going to your doctor for diabetes, you're going to the wrong person. If they're telling you that you should take this drug and that drug and not talk to you about, I just saw this. American Diabetic Association suggested breakfast. Okay. Glass of orange juice, 2 pieces of French toast. What else was on there? It's like if you wanted to give someone diabetes, then feed them that. And this is the establishment's version of what should happen.
It's so illegal.
And so you just go the other way,
Mm-hmm.
You need people who are actually telling you things that make some sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any.
It's too much. All right. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes and people can use our code Low Carb Athlete to get some perfect aminos. And I am creating a 30-day experiment that people can do to go through having ideally a CGM and do the perfect aminos and work out the right way, and nutrition tips, of course, and digestion. So I love all your products in there because it also has digestive enzymes and all the other supplements. So it's not just perfect aminos at the Body Health website. So I'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, my fellow aging endurance athletes, just a reminder, if you like what you listened to today, make sure to share this episode with your community. Head to debbiepotts.net to set up a free discovery call to learn more about my personalized coaching programs, especially if you are on a mission as myself to improve the aging process and start training to be my best self when I am 80, 90 years old. So I am on a mission to live my best life and be my best self the second half of my life. So if you're on the same mission as me, head over to my website and YouTube channel to learn more ways to improve the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method.
If you found this podcast episode interesting, head to bodyhealth.com and you can use our code Low Carb Athlete to save on your purchase. So check out their perfect amino supplements, and even I've been interested in their protein shake with the perfect aminos, and they even have a bar. So check out bodyhealth.com and let me know what you think.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.